Hey friends, welcome back to my kitchen. We are going to make some bread today. We are going to be doing some sourdough sandwich bread, a honey wheat variety. This has become my kids' absolute favorite sourdough recipe that I do. A lot of people love the artisan loaves. They're so beautiful and they're so fun to make, but the kids could care less about how beautiful and fun to make they are. They want the sandwich bread. So we are gonna make 1 loaf of honey wheat sourdough sandwich bread. Normally when I make this recipe, it's usually at least 2 loaves, if not 4 to 6. So it's easily scalable if you're feeding a big family. I want to say a big thank you first to Element, who is sponsoring the video today. I have my lemonade salt Element Sparkling that I will be sipping on while I'm cooking here. I love having my Element in the kitchen here with me, and I sip on it as I'm cooking, especially when I'm doing a lot of baking and the kitchen is really hot. I love having my cold Element, either the sparkling or, a packet made in a glass of ice water. I love having it here to sip on. This is the new lemonade iced tea flavor from Element that we have been enjoying here in the house. It is their first caffeine containing, it's not added caffeine because it just comes from the tea, but caffeine containing element. So if that's what you're looking for, something to give you that pick me up in the afternoon, as well as getting all of your electrolytes in, this is a great option. Element has an offer for all of my viewers. You can get a free sample pack of their most popular fruit flavors just by using my link, drinkelement.com/indigo, drinklmnt.com/indigo. Click that link, head over to the website, place an order for anything. Maybe you want to try the lemonade iced tea, and you will automatically get that 8-stick sample pack added to your order at no charge. Thanks again to Element for sponsoring today, and now we're going to get baking. Let's go over the ingredients real quick. This is a very simple recipe. First, I have my active sourdough starter that I fed last night. It's been sitting overnight, and I know that it's at peak because it's not domed on the top anymore, like it's not still growing. It is kind of flattened out and just barely started falling. So this is all ready to go. I'm going to use 150 grams of the starter. And I am going to be doing all of my measurements in grams. With baking, that is just so very important to get the recipe correct. Volume measurements are just inherently inaccurate. Next, of course, I have some water, and then I have flour, and the amount of flour in the recipe is 425 grams, and I do half all-purpose flour and half bread flour. Both of these flours come from Azure Standard. I've talked about them before on my channel. I'll have a link down below to all the details about that if you're curious, but it's a way to buy like organic, healthy, whole foods in bulk. The all-purpose flour that they carry from Central Milling is a little bit higher protein than some all-purpose flours, so it's kind of halfway in between all-purpose flour and bread flour. So it's a great option for bread. And then I also use, in this recipe, half bread flour, and their bread flour it's not 100% whole grain. I think it says it has about 12% of the bran removed, but it's closer to whole grain than just a plain white flour. So you get that darker color, and it's a little bit more whole grain like. But with this recipe, you can use all-purpose flour, you can use all bread flour. I wouldn't recommend using all 100% whole grain flour unless you're happy with a more dense loaf. Having a little bit of that white flour in there is going to make it softer and less dense. Then we have some salt. I will be using Redmond real salt. We have honey, and we have olive oil. Using my kitchen scale, I'm going to measure 150 grams of my starter into my bowl. This is a nice bubbly active starter, and it's only going to leave a tiny bit in the jar, which is actually plenty to refeed and keep the starter going. You only need like little scrapings left in the jar in order to keep it alive. So just that is left, but I'm going to add some flour and some water to this and get it mixed up, and it'll get bubbly again in a few hours. Next, I'm going to add 225 grams of water. And if you want your bulk fermentation time to go a little bit faster, getting your water to like 85 degrees Fahrenheit is going to make it go a little faster. If you start with, real cold water, it'll just take longer. Next, I'm going to add 40 grams of honey. And you can replace the honey with, organic sugar or maple syrup if you want a maple loaf. And then I'm adding 40 grams of olive oil. I'm going to give that a quick mix. It's nice to dissolve especially the starter in the water first before you add the flour. makes it easier, the honey as well. Okay, now with the flour, I like to put my flour on the scale, zero it out, and then it'll say minus the amount I took out, which makes it very easy. You need a total of 425 grams of flour in the recipe, so I'm gonna do about 212 grams of each of the all-purpose flour and the bread flour. I'm gonna go ahead and get this all mixed up, and you'll notice that the only ingredient I haven't added yet is the salt. I am gonna let this sit and let the flour absorb all of the liquids for 30 minutes, and then I will add the salt. Salt hinders fermentation a little bit, and so having that 30-minute time of letting the fermentation really get started is a good idea. And that works out well during the time that the flour is absorbing all of that liquid. Now I just want to get this basically mixed up until all the flour is, incorporated and it's kind of like a shaggy dough. And it quickly becomes easier to use the Danish dough whisk when things start coming together. And I will link all of my tools that I'm using. I think almost everything is from Amazon. So I will link things down below if you're curious about any of these tools. I'm going to cover my bowl. I'm going to set a timer for 30 minutes and then I will be back to actually knead the dough. I just realized that my camera was not filming when I added in the salt. So basically I just added in 10 grams of salt sprinkled on top of the dough, kind of dimpled it in with my fingers, and then I'm just starting the kneading process. This is called upfront gluten development. Basically just kneading, and I usually go for about 7 to 8 minutes. And of course you can do this in like a KitchenAid mixer with a dough hook. I just always worry that I'm gonna kill my KitchenAid mixer prematurely if I do too much bread in there, so I just enjoy the upper body workout. All right, that is looking pretty good. I'm gonna let this sit for about 15 minutes and then I'm gonna do my first set of stretch and folds, and I'm gonna do 15 minutes, stretch and fold, 15 minutes, stretch and fold, then 30 minutes, stretch and fold. So it'll be 3 stretch and folds. How many times can I say stretch and fold? Just gonna cover this and set a 15-minute timer. I like to have a little dish of water to dip my hands in when I do my stretch and folds. For a small batch, stretch and folds seem to be easier. When I do a large batch, like if I'm doing several loaves at a time, the coil folds seem to be easier. Just because of the amount of dough. So just stretching and folding. This is going to be my last stretch and fold. The coil fold now is working the best just because the dough gets stiff as the gluten develops. And for my bulk fermentation, I'm going to let it rise about 50%. When I do really large batches, I'll use the Alico method to judge, the percentage of rise it's at, which I won't go into the details about that, but I'll link to a video if you're curious about it. But since this is a, just one loaf batch, the easiest way that I found to do it is put it into a clear container that has straight sides, and that'll just help you be able to see how it grows. So I've got my nice little tight ball here. I'm gonna put it into my container and kind of press it down just a little bit to make it flat. Not completely flat, but a little bit flat on the sides. And I'm gonna use my dry erase marker just to mark kind of where it is on the jar. And so I'll know, like, if it rises all the way to here, that's about 100% rise. So I'm gonna shoot for right there in the middle, and that'll give me about a 50% rise. Of course, the timing of how long that's gonna take depends on the temperature in the house and the dough temperature. And so I'll let you know how long it takes for me, but it's not something that you do based on time as much as based on like what you're seeing as far as the percentage rise. This has been rising for about an hour and a half, and that's pretty quick. And that's just because today is a very hot day. If it was wintertime, it would probably take a lot longer. But you can see I'm just over that 50%
mark, and anywhere between 50 and 75% will probably be fine on this recipe. There will be a second rise in the pan later, and I've kind of found that if, you know, I'm have a time crunch in the first fermentation, I can, you know, keep it a little bit lower and then just make up for it in the second. You can kind of play with it that way. So I'm using a 9x5 stainless steel bread pan, and then I have these liners that are very, very handy, also from Amazon, that fit right in like that. And that just makes for an easy cleanup. You can see on the side here, I've got some little bubbles showing all that fermentation. Just gonna get this out of the container. And I'm just gonna do a pre-shape, which is just kind of pulling it and making the top nice and tight, getting that gluten cloak nice and tight on there. And then I'm gonna let it sit for maybe like 10 minutes. Basically, the only thing I'm trying to wait for is for the top not to be too sticky. It'll kind of like dry just a little bit over the top so that when I flip it over and do my other shaping, it doesn't stick to the counter. All right, now for the final shaping, I am going to flip this over. And this is just my favorite way that I found to shape, you know, longer loaf shapes. Just flatten out the ball. Doesn't have to be a perfect rectangle or anything, but just flatten it out a little bit. And then I fold in about a third, like this. I'll put a link to the video where I learned the shaping method. I went back to that video so many times trying to remember how to do it, and now I feel like I have it, but I will share that video. Now I take both sides like this and fold them in and kind of press it until they adhere. And then I take the top. If it gets a tiny bit sticky, I just have my little bench scraper to release it. And I roll it and kind of press it with my thumbs. Roll it, press it with my thumbs. Well, so it's kind of tightening the gluten cloak on the top. I love saying gluten cloak. It is such a cool term. All right, and then I just kind of pinch the ends in here and maybe pull it towards me just a couple of times to really tighten the top. And sometimes I flip it over just to see if I need to pinch the seam at all. Like that. That's looking pretty good. And that's about it. And I'm just going to put it into my pan. And now if you want to bake this on the same day, you can set it out and let it do its second rise right now. I prefer to have the long cold fermentation time. So I am going to tuck this in the fridge overnight. I usually just let them ferment overnight, so just 12 hours or so. But I have gone up to like 3 days and still had a really nice loaf. So you can kind of play it by ear. You can prep 3 of them and then every morning bake a new loaf of bread. Works out fine. I'm just using the same little shower cap thingy. I will link those on Amazon as well. On the top of this to not let it dry out too much. I'm going to go throw this into the fridge and then I will be back tomorrow morning. I will pull it out. It will sit and do its second rise and then we'll bake it. Time to wake this up from its nap. I'm going to set it on the counter. I'm expecting this to take 2 to 3 hours before it's ready to bake. What I'm looking for is for it to rise up so the dome is a little bit above the edge of the pan. And then of course the dough will be nice and bouncy. One thing I've noticed about dough that I chill and then bring out for a second rise, you don't see any movement very quickly because the dough is still coming to room temperature. So for the first hour or so, it won't look like anything has changed. And then as soon as it's warm to room temperature, then it starts rising really quickly. And so I've learned that I need to watch it really carefully after that like 1 hour mark up to like the 2 hour or so mark, because it can go to overproofed really fast if I'm not paying attention. So it is 7:30 in the morning right now, and I will let you know exactly how long it takes for the second proof. It has been about 2 hours and this is still not ready. It's definitely rising. It's about even with the top of the pan, maybe a little less, not quite to the top of the pan. And I want it to be maybe like half an inch above, like the peak above the edge of the pan. So I'm thinking probably an hour or so. It has now been 4.5 hours, and this is looking like it's ready to go into the oven. I usually don't watch the clock, so I was guessing 2 to 3 hours, but 4.5, more like it. And it's probably like 75 degrees in my kitchen right now. I'm ready to score this and get it into the oven. I have a pizza stone in the oven. So these pans that I have are stainless steel and they do not transfer the heat very well. So it's difficult to get the sides of the loaf nicely browned and the bottom of the loaf nicely browned. And so I do 2 things to help brown them up. The first is to cook it on a pizza stone. That helps with the bottom. The second thing is during the last like 15 minutes of cooking, I take the loaf out of the pan and just set it directly on the pizza stone, and that gets nice browning all around. If you have a different kind of pan, a non-stick pan, it could brown differently, so your mileage may vary there. You may not need to do that step. So as far as scoring, what I like to do on these ones is just 3 scores on the top. It is more difficult to score a loaf that is, at room temperature and poofy. When you score the ones right out of the fridge, it's way easier. Oh, my oven is preheated. So I just try to be kind of careful and not tear the dough. But I do want to get kind of a nice deep score, so I usually go over it a couple of times. Turn it around and go the other way. Now, in order to trap some steam for the first part of cooking, I'm going to cook it with another loaf pan on top like this. It's similar to the effect of a Dutch oven. I am going to throw this into my oven. I preheated my oven to 350. As soon as I put this in, I will reduce, it's too poofy. I will reduce the temperature to 325. I will cook it for 15 minutes. Then I will remove the lid, 10 minutes, take it out of the pan, and I'll rotate it, of course, at that point. And then I will cook it another 15 minutes outside of the pan, and then it should be done. Don't mind my blotchy pizza stone. So that's what it looks like in there. I'm going to close it up and then reduce the temperature to 425. It has been 15 minutes. I'm taking the top off. Ooh, look how beautiful. 10 minutes is up, so I took it out of the pan and it's sitting there for its last 15 minutes. All right, this is looking real nice. The bottom got a little brown, which, the pizza stone does that. But look at how beautiful. It's nicely browned on all the sides. If I had cooked it in the pan the entire time, the sides would still be white. So pulling it out of the pan really, really helps. One last thing I do to this right after it comes out of the oven is I brush it with olive oil. And I do this just mainly for looks. I think it probably softens the crust up a little bit too, but that nice glossy look is just really, really pretty. So I just get it, it's not much, it's very little. Just get it kind of brushed all around so it looks beautiful. Okay, I'm gonna let this cool for at least an hour and then I will be back to cut it and show you what it looks like inside. I'm ready to give this a slice. It cooled for about 2 hours. There's a quick view. It is so, so soft. And the honey adds a nice bit of sweetness. And it's just absolutely perfect for savory sandwiches, or the kids use it for like cinnamon toast or things like that, for either sweet or savory options. Charity loves to use this for grilled cheese. It's definitely easiest to slice really thin slices if you, wait about a day or so before you slice it. When you are slicing it fresh, it's a little bit harder, but like if I did it tomorrow morning, I could do like micro thin slices.
So that is what the crumb looks like. I will have a link to the written version of this recipe. Let me know if you guys try it. Thanks for baking in the kitchen with me today, and I will see you again in the next video.